Hi, everybody. I went to put my computer on and I realized it was in the wrong place. These things happen. This is DearMamaSal, and it's Friday lunchtime, which is one of 3 broadcasts that we do every week. DearMamaSal is a group of people who get together and learn and practice coping with life in different ways. At lunchtime on a Friday, we talk about coping with our feelings. We acknowledge that we have them. We know there are no good or bad feelings. They're just feelings that we have, and normally we have a good reason for having them. And then on Friday evening, we talk about coping with life, because life comes at us all the time. And then on Sunday afternoon, we talk about coping with our stress. So we are a support group, if you like, of people who get together. And I'm very, very thankful for my viewers who do come. Hi, Jody. Good to see you. For those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin, and she does a wonderful job of looking after all of us. She definitely looks after me a whole stack, but I know she also spends time keeping track and following up with viewers on things as well. So good for you. We're very, very grateful for that, Jody. I just want you to know that. Take yet another bow. Today, if you will, we're going to be talking a little bit about our feelings, and once we've got a moment to do that, we will talk about everybody's week. But the other thing that I want to do is to talk to you a little bit more about our feelings that we have around difficult situations. And I think it's really important that we not only look into that a whole lot more, but also work with it. And so I'm going to be challenging you a little bit. How many of you like to be challenged on things? And if you do, why? And how many of you do not like to be challenged on things? And if the answer is, I don't like to be challenged on things, let me know why. Because it's really important for us to understand that part of being challenged and challenging is about learning. Hi, Jeannie. I'm glad you're here because I wanted to give you kudos right off the top. One of the things that I have always admired in Jeannie is that although she is, to the best of my knowledge, a very kind and caring and giving person, I really admire Jeannie's ability to stand up for herself and her beliefs. And she doesn't do it in a rude way, but if she doesn't agree, she says so. And that's okay. And being challenged is okay. But she doesn't sort of do it nonstop. It's not like she is constantly coming in and changing the vibration of a broadcast or something. But I really respect, and I'm certain other viewers do as well, the fact that she actually is not scared to actually say, actually, I don't agree with it. And then we'll give either a reason or a backup fact. And to me, this is very emotionally intelligent, if you like. And not only that, even though, and this is what I find so interesting, even though Jeannie and I can be diametrically opposed on certain things, she still sees me as a friend and somebody worth listening to, even though I have totally different views on certain things. I think that's pretty amazing, don't you? And I don't know about you guys, but to me, a definition of a friend, I can hear this one. For me, a definition of a true friend is somebody who has the courage to tell me the truth and know that I might not like it at the time, but knows I'm smart enough that even if I instantly react, because that's what we do sometimes, then I will go away and think about it and process it and then come back and talk about it again. But, so to me, somebody who can do that, who can tell me the truth, is a really important, what I call friendship factor for me. And then the other thing is somebody who I trust I can tell the truth to, and they might not like it, and they might get angry with me, but I trust that they will go away and think about it and know that for me to get that upset or that worried about something means that I am seriously concerned. And so, hi there, Salamia. And so to me, that is a level of friendship, that you can actually have some level of conflict. But you know that that's just about this. It is not about everything. All right. It's just on this subject we don't agree. And the greatest gift we can give one another is the gift of I agree to disagree. And how many of you find conflict very, very difficult? And that's the thing that I want to try and help everybody with today. Not that I want to have conflict. I want us to talk about stuff that normally causes conflict and that we can just see different sides of it and know that we don't have to fight about it. We just need to hear different sides of it. And from that, we all learn. We all learn. Jeannie, I wanted to give kudos to you on the fact that, I was busy pontificating about something last week, and you, as a talking point back to me, you brought up the situation in Oregon. And it was so funny because you probably noticed that I stopped talking at that point on that issue. And I don't know if you noticed that, but the reason I did was I went, something? I don't know enough about what happened in Oregon. And therefore, I'm going to let that go for now until I have some more information and that I can, maybe come at it from a different point of view. and so, Jeannie, I want to thank you because, as usual, something you said made me think. And I like to pride myself that I think quite a bit and that I don't take things at face value. I do look into them to some degree. And what I thought I'd do is I would demonstrate how I do that, just so that you guys can, if you don't know how to do that, then how do I get a balanced view on things? And it's amazing how interesting it is to do it, because somewhere along the line you're going to definitely learn something. So we're going to be talking about that in a moment. But before that, I just wanted to check, did any of you have any joy this week? And if so, what was your joy? I was trying to think what I found joyful this week. Oh, I went to go and see my... I went to go and see, this is while I'm waiting for you guys to respond. And for those of you who are watching, welcome to you. We do welcome anybody to listen. Hopefully that we will say something that is of value to you. But to me, the fact that you just turn it on and listen and don't participate is absolutely fine. However, for those of you who come in and chit chat, just a reminder, if you put it up on the stream as a comment, the chances are I'm going to talk about it. And remember that what I talk about stays on the replay. And so it is really important that if you want to share something with the people in the room and me, but you don't want me talking about it, then at the beginning of that comment, just put, Sal, don't mention my name on this. And then what I can do is, probably talk about it in a way that doesn't identify it relating to you. I can just say a viewer has mentioned, and then that is a way of not identifying you on it. Or if you just don't want me to talk about it at all, think about that. Maybe don't even put it up at all. It's just like that way you don't. I always said to people, when they say to me, I want to tell you something in confidence, and I always say, then don't tell me. And because if you want it to be in confidence, why would you tell me? Oh, Jeannie's saying that her dog Misty went to the internist, and she seems to be doing a lot better. Good. And you're getting your first COVID vaccination tomorrow afternoon. That is wonderful. I found out that I won't get my first one. I won't qualify here in Canada for my first one until April. I think, in terms of my age. Jody's saying, my joy this week was our new coffee maker that may seem a bit shallow, but a few days without coffee turns Jody into a grumpy girl. Yes, I think, quite honestly, I don't think my coffee maker is a luxury. I think it's a survival tactic. And I know it sounds strange. Do any of you still have a regular drip type coffee maker? Because I've got one here. For those of you who don't know, I'm not in my real house. Unfortunately, I had a fire, and so did Jeannie. But I am waiting to get back into my house, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things is this rented apartment in which I'm living came with a coffee maker, but it's the old sort of drip type one. And I don't care what anybody says. It uses far more coffee than my Keurig. Now, I'm not advertising for Keurig. Please understand that. They're not paying me or anything. But I did find that with my Keurig, I just used a little bit of coffee when I needed it. But I find with the drip thing, you've got to put in, I would think, twice as much coffee just to get the same results. I don't know why that is. Anybody know? A learning moment. So I don't think that's shallow, Jody. I think every joy to get that that new coffee maker, and hopefully, and I saw you even put it through a cleansing run to start with. I mean, Jody, you are so special. Me, I just turned the damn thing on. All right, so, Jeannie's saying that part of her joy, she also had a fire in her house and they're rebuilding. Jeannie's saying that her joy this week was that they're actually putting in some windows and including the bay window in the living room. Wow, that's so exciting. Jeannie, I went to see my house yesterday, and they actually have done a lot of work. The insulation is in, the ceilings are in, and when I was there yesterday, they were finishing putting up the new drywall, and they told me that today they would be taping and mudding it. So then next week, presumably, they will start painting and wallpapering if I want that. I'm waiting for them to send me samples of stuff when I'm going to make the decision. So, Jeannie, I totally understand. And it was the first time since the fire that I walked in and went, wow, isn't that interesting? That feels different already, just because it's starting to look like a home again, not a disaster zone. It's like, when I kept walking in and seeing all that, horror, when it was stripped back, to walls that were, originally there. I don't know why. It was so depressing. But suddenly it's moving forward. And, I'm looking at it going, whoa, that's quite exciting. So that was joyful for me as well. So thank you for talking about that, Jeannie. Any excitement this week for any of you? Did any of you have any excitement that you'd like to talk about? And excitement is a wonderful thing. It normally means you're doing something new or unexpected. I'm trying to think, what excitement did I have? I got a parcel this week. What was in it? Getting parcels is always exciting for me. I'm trying to think what it was that I got. I really need to do some unpacking type videos, right? Oh, that's interesting. So, Salamir, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Anything that starts with Sal has got to be a good name, right? I'm biased. So she's saying that, or I think it's a she anyway, that she gave some things out to people, things that no longer serve me, but people could find useful. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. And Jodie's saying her psych evaluation, she's getting a psych evaluation before an operation that she's having. The appointments are all scheduled now for the 9th and 16th of February. Another step forward. Well done. So I thought you already had done. Oh, so first of all, they do the questionnaire and then they evaluate you again after the questionnaire. Is that right? All right, and you know something, Jeannie? Totally understand that. Jeannie's saying that Ray, her builder, asked if they wanted a cheap bathtub, and we said no, and we got a heavy, beautiful bathtub. I think that's the call I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that call, and I may have to be proactive on that because I have not had the call to ask me what my bathroom fittings should look like, and I need to do that because I'm being asked what cabinetry I want. How can I decide what cabinetry before I decide on what's going in? In other words, if I don't know what sort of sink I am allowed to have, then how do I know what sort of vanity I want to go with the sink? Does that make sense? So next week, I'm definitely going to be asking more questions about that. Oh, and Jeannie is saying that last week that we helped Annie. I want to tell you, it was a delight to have her come in. I hope she comes again. I felt that we all benefited from her visit. And so now I look at it and go, I'll probably remember what I what I got this week. I forgot to make a note. I must admit, if there was, but let's ask that question. If there was one word to describe your week that's just gone, what would be the one word? What would be the one word you would use? And again, I'd have to say, my word was, boy, was I sick this week. It was just like, I don't know what is, I'm trying to work out whether I am just feeling the effects of being locked down on my own, not in my own home, and not with the things around me that I really would like to have around me. I don't know whether it was a level of partially of depression that hit, or but I do know that I had a real brain fog going on. Plus, I was running a below normal temperature. And I was, just this brain fog was really weird. And then I realized only yesterday that I was out of it enough that for 2 days I didn't take my medication. Now that's, taking your medication is like brushing your teeth. And I did brush my teeth. So why did I do that and not take my medication? My medication was in the drawer where it normally is. And I guess I never, my brain didn't get that far. So really interesting. And Salamia is saying that the word to describe her week was busy. What were you up to, if you can share that? And by the way, welcome. How did you find us? And roughly where do you live? Country, region, something that gives us a compass point where we can go, oh, she's near Jodie, or whatever. And I'm going to presume that you are female. If I'm incorrect on that, make sure you correct me, because I'm going to continue to presume that until I hear otherwise. Jodie's saying, I got in my own way this week. Oh yeah, Jodie, I understand that one. So I think delayed was the word for my schedule. Yes, delayed. And, you are the first one to tell us all, Jodie, that it's okay. If we're not feeling up to it, it's okay to delay. It's still going to be there tomorrow. And I must admit that part of my process was I I realized that I needed to get out and get a change of I need to get out of my this apartment and see fresh things and meet people, because that's what I thought that was part of my problem. But you can probably hear I'm still not 100%, but I'm definitely a lot brighter than I was. And one of my things was the frustration. I because of feeling so yuck, I didn't get my exercise in either. And I was beating up on myself about that. I don't know if any of you relate to that one. And I'm going, if you weren't feeling strong enough to do that, Sal, it is okay. But boy, I had difficulty giving myself permission. Do any of you relate to that? Yeah, and Jeannie's reminding me to be careful about missing my meds. I quite agree. It's not something I normally do, Jeannie. And she's saying, if you miss your meds, you can end up, in a situation. And she was saying that she ended up in hospital because she missed her meds. I actually did. I don't know about you, Jeannie, but I can remember going down, funny enough, to visit Benji and Judy one time, and I clean forgot my meds. And I was a little bit panicked as to what I was going to do about that. Was I going to go to a local pharmacy and beg for them to give me 2 days worth of meds? And would they give it to me? I didn't know. And then what I decided to do, rather than panic about it, I thought as usual, seek first to understand and being prepared, not scared. I actually Googled how long I could go without my meds before it started to have any impact whatsoever. And what I read, Jeannie, rightly or wrongly, and I read it from the Mayo Clinic, I think, or somewhere that I consider to be a reputable source, said that, going 2 days without your meds is not good, but it's not really going to have an effect on you. It'll only start having an effect after, more than 2 days. And as I was only there for 2 days, I thought, okay, fine. I can do myself more harm by panicking than I can by just not taking my meds. Now, obviously, it depends what sort of meds you're on. And in my case, the meds I take, it wasn't going to be a major thing. So I think anybody, in their right minds knows that not taking your meds is not a good thing. But thank you for mentioning it. And I hope you know, Ginny, it's not an intent. It wasn't that I meant to not take them. It was just that it was sick. So Jeannie's saying, it depends what meds you're on. Exactly. And she was saying that after not taking hers for 2 days, she could have had a stroke. So that's, you've got meds that are much more important to you than I do. And Jeannie's reminding me, the reason she's reminding me is because she cares. I think, I believe you. And you care about everybody, that they need to be careful about that. So that maybe my comment to you all would be, how many of you know how long it is safe for you to be without whatever medications you take? When I say safe, I'm not saying that you should do it, but if for any reason you should be without meds, do you know how many days you could afford to be without them by accident, and still be okay? You don't have to rush to get emergency supplies. And I would really give everybody a heads up so that you know. And if you know, then you won't need to be as concerned, or you need to be as concerned as Jeannie does. And the interesting thing is, Jeannie's saying her husband York never lets her forget. Well, that is one of the joys, if you don't mind my saying so, of being married to somebody who loves you dearly, is that they care enough to remind you. Me, I've got walls talking to me, and there was nobody to say, hey, I know you're not well, but did you take your meds today? And it's like, I don't know why. I just wasn't one day, it was 2, which I think tells you that I wasn't feeling too hot. Actually I was, but I was feeling hot and running a low temperature. Go figure that one. Jody's saying there's a big difference between heart meds and, say, something like thyroid meds, which I take, yes. Definitely depends on what you're taking. The safety factor in missing a few doses, yes. That's what I just would like you all to do. And let's take it as a learning moment. Just know what you're taking and how long can you go without it before it becomes a major problem. You're a female and Polish. I don't know any words in Polish. I am so sorry. But you live in Ireland. Oh, that tells me a lot about you. I found you a long time ago via Benji and Judy. Okay, thank you. And started following you as I grasp your wisdom and I was grasped by your wisdom and humbleness. That brings tears to my eyes, Salamia, because I don't think many people have ever accused me of being humble. So that's interesting. Tell me more. What is it that I do that makes you believe that I am humble? Of all the words people have used on me, I don't think I've heard the word humble very often. That is beautiful. I'm glad somebody sees it. It's not something I would ever, not a word I would ever use about myself. Isn't that interesting? That actually touched my soul. And you followed me on Twitter a long time ago. Well, I hope, what always amazes me, and I say this at the beginning of most broadcasts, is you're welcome to just listen or watch or whatever, because I know an awful lot of people do that. I am so pleased that you came in to talk today and tell me, why did you pick today to come in and chat to us? But we love you for it. That's, see, it's wonderful when we can meet new people and hear new views. And if there's anything, in case we never see you again, and that's always a possibility, is there anything in particular you would like some help with, so that I can make sure that we do that for you? Jody's saying that she's Polish too. Isn't that interesting? Check. I didn't know that. I don't speak or write it fluently. Just a few words. Makes Polish food from my childhood. Now, isn't that interesting? I've known Jody for some years, and I didn't know that she was from Polish background. I should have known. Yeah, but guess I never asked that question, Jode. And I should have known with pierogies and all that stuff, but never put two and two together. Which is why I always love it when we do broadcasts. Because every broadcast we learn something. Every broadcast we learn something. Don't you find that? And to me, that's really, really important. So, anybody get any big surprises this week? While we're talking about it, did I get a big surprise? I frightened myself. I disgusted myself. I frightened myself, and that was a surprise. When I was out yesterday. Hi, Kimmy. Good to see you, honey. Hope you're feeling a bit better. I must admit, when I was out yesterday, I got to an intersection where I was going to turn right. Have you all got that picture? And, I sort of drew up to where the intersection was. And then obviously my vision, I sort of was aware that everybody stopped with me. And then I went to go and turn right. What I didn't see, and that's why I'm disgusted at myself, what I didn't see was a woman with a stroller coming across the crosswalk. I didn't see her at all. And just as I started to roll forward to take the right, there she was with the stroller. And I want to tell you that shocked me, it frightened me. And her body language told me exactly what she thought of me, and rightly so. And it was amazing because I must have looked like a deer in the headlights, because it was like, how did I not see her? And then I looked again to my right, and I realized that the car to my left was slightly forward. And so my line of vision of things coming across the, it was a panel van type thing. And so my line of vision of what was coming across the crosswalk was blocked. And so, it's like, and so then I wanted to just describe to you what my process was. Number one was, she was, obviously very angry at me, and I just nodded, like, you have every right to be. And then I also asked for forgiveness, because that's what I could think of. Hi, Chip and Nada. And it was just like, okay, I cannot fix it. I cannot take back what I did, right? Remember the nails in the fence story yesterday? I cannot undo my mistake. Therefore, I need to apologize for it and move on, all right? That's the thing. But then, being me, I'm going, how did that happen? And I looked to my left and I went, my line of vision of that crosswalk was actually interrupted. And so when I did look, and I did look before I went to turn right, I didn't see anything, because all I could see was the car. And I learned a lesson not to do that again. And again, I have to tell you, I really gave thanks and thanked God for helping me not hit that stroller. And I was very thankful for the brakes on my Jeep, because, wow, imagine if I'd had bad brakes. I don't want to imagine it. But, it was a shock. And then I also was smart enough to realize that as I was driving away from that I needed to give myself a little bit of time for my adrenaline to settle down again. So I just didn't, I really concentrated very hard on just getting calm and forgiving myself and moving on, as with my life. I couldn't take it back and undo it. And it's interesting because Jeannie's saying there are blind spots in a vehicle. Yeah, it was horrible. Kimmy's saying when pedestrians step out, when you're already, it's already your fault, and they should be watching traffic too. Well, aren't you kind? Kimmy's trying to make sure there's balance in this. It's not just my responsibility, but it was also hers. Yeah, and Chip's saying pedestrians do move really fast, or so it seems when I drive. But she was coming from my left and across. It wasn't that she came from my right. It was she was coming from my left, and the other cars on the left of me were shielding her in some way. I don't know how that was possible, but it was what happened. And then I thought about it afterwards. I know my brain, you remember the cycle of loss? My brain immediately went, I believe that strollers should have one of those flags on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, wheelchairs have a high flag on them so people can see there's a wheelchair. I think strollers should have them as well, because I think I would have seen a flag. So now, is that because I want to feel better? Maybe. But, I also have the sort of mind. I also have the sort of mind that says, how could I stop that happening again? Obviously, pay more attention. But again, I think that, can you imagine if I'd hit that stroller? Wow. Okay, and Jodie's saying, yes, I agree, a flag would be an important safety measure. So you can understand that's how my mind works. I'm a problem solver and in my mentality. And I'm going, what would I recommend to stop that? And that's what it would be. Right, let's just see whether we've got any other things. Anybody have any sadness this week that you'd like to share with us so that we can understand? I was really sad while you guys are typing. I was really sad at how difficult it was for me to actually give myself permission to be sick. And it was funny because I had reason to be talking with Benji round about Tuesday, I think, when I was really starting to realize that maybe I wasn't as well as I should be. And Benji said, how about you just rest for a couple of days? Because that's what you tell me to do. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. And, I had to laugh. But, it's funny. I don't know if any of you who may live alone, or even who don't live alone, that giving myself permission to stop and just rest is really difficult. I think you guys know that of me, right? And so to me, it's like, I heard him. And then instead of feeling guilty, I then said, okay, fine, let me think, what would I need to let go of in order to do that, right? Because you understand that to give myself permission to rest is difficult. So what would I need to let go of? I would need to let go of my need to be productive every day of my life. I wouldn't, and I went through this list. And then I said, what would I need to do to make sure that I stay resting? And I thought, I need to find something I can binge watch. And I did. I found, a series that actually, a program that had 3 series to it. And I binge watched and just stayed in my jammies and allowed myself to be sick. And the joke was that's how I forgot my meds, right? I didn't have that routine going. And it was just only yesterday when I decided to go and shower. I thought having a shower was a good idea, and so I could feel clean and give myself some more energy. And then I went to go take my meds, and I went, oh, short word, I forgot to take my meds. All right, so that's really interesting. So Salome is saying, I read once an interesting thing, that we should rest before we get sick. Yeah. I get your point. And isn't it true? Had I rested the week before, and by the way, I did have a night where I didn't sleep. So, there were a lot of funny things going on. It's like my body was really messing me up. And I think my average sleep for the last 2 weeks has only been about 5 hours a night. And so, to me, it's just like, very difficult week for me. So, all right. So I appreciate what you're writing there, Nada, and I won't repeat it, but big hugs. Jody's saying, Kimmy, please think of rephrasing into looking forward because I can't wait. Sends a message to your body. Yeah, Jody's repeating something. I have to keep reminding Jody that what we say matters. Let me see what Kimmy said. Oh, I can't wait for halftime at the Super Bowl. Oh, and the Super Bowl as well, because Tom Brady's in it again with a different team. So, it is, for those of you, I did wonder about that, whether you want me to not do a broadcast on Sunday because of the Super Bowl. Nada, I am really pleased that you are doing what you're doing. Really pleased. That tells me you are looking after yourself. That's awesome. You're doing, you're being proactive about it. That's great. Anybody have any fear this week? Actually, I was trying to think. I had some frustration going on. And, when you get to my age, as you all know, as regular viewers, that what happens is every now and then my brain just doesn't give me the word I want for something. It's part of growing older. And I accept that. And it was really funny because I had I had something that I wanted to discuss, and I knew there was a word, there was a definition of it, and I couldn't for the life of me think what it is. And as somebody once said, a dictionary is of no use to you if you don't know how to spell the word. How many of you can see the humor in that? You've got to, and dictionaries should be phonetic rather than pure, because if you don't know how to spell it, how do you find it? And that was the joy of the internet. The internet understands phonetics. So you can write in the phonetics in Google, and it'll give you the proper spelling. And I love that. Well, Nada, I totally understand why that would be, and probably a bit angry as well. All right. So I just thank you for sharing it, because it's important that you share that information. And I'm not going to talk about it more than that, and just say to you, I think you are perfectly entitled to have those feelings, and I think that's a difficulty that we understand. Feelings are just feelings. It's okay. Yes, and Kimmy's saying, she looks things up on Google, and also Grammarly. I love Grammarly. They rate me very highly. I'm quite surprised. They send me my score every week, and I'm going, really? And I think the difference that I hear today, Nada, is that you're actually, working on dealing with those feelings. And I think that's so important. And, you're thanking me for listening, but honey, may I give you a 2x4? Without the velvet on it. I've known you long enough, Nada, and I know your sense of humor. So, okay, she gave me permission. Nada, if you don't talk about things, how can we listen and support you? So you get 10 out of 10 for me today for actually telling us the truth we can understand and support in some way. So well done. I hope you're laughing. When you're in withdrawal, which you do very well, when you're in withdrawal, it's so difficult to listen to you. Because contrary to what you believe, Nada, I am not clairvoyant. Mind you, there's some people that will argue on that one, but it's just like, yeah, true, she said. It's a big lesson to learn, Nada. I just want to tell you that. It is a really big lesson to learn. And the reason we don't share that stuff is because how many of you were told by somebody that you respected or had to respect that don't talk about bad stuff? And this actually segues beautifully into what I want to talk about, because I think for a lot of us, we were told, don't talk about this, don't talk about that. If you're sick, don't talk about it. Nobody wants to hear it. Well, I think for us here at DearMamaSal, our job is to try and understand what's going on so we can support it. And you just helped us. Yeah. And, Nada, you can understand that you are now prompting me that maybe I need to have a discussion with my doctor about what's been going on with me. And Jody's saying, yes, I was taught that. I was brought up and it was embarrassing and had to be kept a secret. Yeah. And so you feel that you were doing a bad thing when you told the truth. And Nada's saying, yes, I do feel awkward talking about it. But it helps. Of course it helps. Do you guys think less of me because I'm honest about stuff like this? Am I allowed to talk about that comment about your doctor, Nada? Because I think you're not alone on that one. And I have an answer for you. Okay, so Nada is saying, my doctor rushes me so much, I get frustrated. He has no time for me, it seems. Have you told him that? And the other thing is, Nada, do you know that you are allowed to ask for a double appointment? Because you need the time to ask some questions. I've done that. If I've got something going on that I know I need to ask some serious questions on, I will actually say, I want to book a double slot. I need time to ask him some questions. It's some serious questions. Judy's saying maybe find a new doctor. Yeah. And Jody's saying, Nada, do you go in with a list of questions and concerns? It has helped me tremendously. Yes, I must admit that I only take a regular appointment if I'm just going to have my meds refilled and do whatever. Well, the other thing I would do, Kimmy, Kimmy's saying you can't do that at her clinic. I would come out and sit again. And I would actually say to them, I'd like to go in twice, preferably, 2 appointments. But if I can't do 2 appointments, I'm going to come back and sit in the waiting room again. So I'm still going to be here using up the time. So it'd be better if I do the 2 segments. All right. So Kimmy's saying that's what I do. I take a list and give it to the doctor. Right. So Nada, do you do that? Do you take your questions with you? Then he gets to decide how much time to spend with you. Then you end up knowing that he's got that information. And the other thing is, he gets to put that in your file, or he gets to type that into the system that you've got those concerns. So the next time you're in, you can say, last time I came in, I got answers to the first 2, but I still need answers to the last 3. Yeah, and Junie's saying that she and York are lucky with the doctor they've got, because he understands those sort of things. All right, so good. Thank you so much for mentioning it. Again, Nada, all right, when you talk about it, it helps other people. All right, so here this one. Nada's saying, I do go in with a list, but he's like, oh my goodness, overwhelmed, ignores it all, but says, what's the worst thing? When those could be causing crossover. It may help if you listen to it all. You know something? All right, Nada's saying, I will try again. And maybe he had a bad day those days. I want to tell you something else. When I was struggling with all those symptoms I had when it later found out that part of my problem was sleep apnea and the other part was obviously diabetes coming in, pre-diabetic, that I kept going and not getting better. And eventually I started to say to my doctor, you keep thinking it's X, Y, and Z. I need you to start thinking outside that box. What else could it be? And can you test me for it? All right. That it's really, and he sort of looked at me and I said, I just want to make sure that we're not focusing on what you think it may be. Either do the test to confirm that, but don't stop trying to find the answer, because I'm not getting better, I'm getting worse. And I need you to understand that and hear me on that. I know my body. It's not happy. Right? So great one. Another saying, I will try again. Right? And that's very important. Don't give up on yourself, honey. Don't, you've heard me say it time and time again. Don't give up on yourself. All right. And Kimmy's saying they've told what is the worst thing on the list. And then what do I want to do about it? What I would say, the worst thing on my list is that you're asking me that question, because I need answers to your input on all of those questions. So what do I need to do? Come back 4 times? Just tell me. I want those. I want to discuss those things with my doctor, and you're my doctor. So now they're saying, right, and they start to think you're crazy. It's like, I'm not having this happen to me. It is true, and maybe you need to address that one. Why do you choose only to answer one? All right, is it that you only have time for one, in which case I will book enough appointments? It's like, or do you think I'm wasting your time? Let's get the 2x4s out here and talk about this. This is a conflict that concerns your health. And Jody will talk to you about that one. And Jody's, and she did. How did I know that was going to come up? Jody's saying, I once was so frustrated at an appointment that I broke down in tears and said, Doctor, I do not feel that I'm being heard here. I'm complicated and I don't fit into the same box as somebody who sees you once a year. Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Jody. After that, the entire relationship changed and they made more time for me. My job is to come in with a targeted list of concerns. Now, I think that's something that you could talk about for a second, Jody. What is the difference between a targeted list and maybe a list of all my concerns? Or Nada, here's something I would ask you. Would you like to sort of talk to Jody, off the broadcast, and maybe get her input on how to adjust what you're asking? Because obviously Jody's got this one down to a fine art. And it may not be that he doesn't want to answer the questions. Maybe what you're asking him is like, what's the meaning of life? You know what I mean? It's a huge question and he cannot possibly answer it in that time. All right, so Jody's instant reply on this is be very specific, a list in order of priority of concern. All right, so you understand, Nada, I'm liking this a lot. And I'm hearing you really getting control of what's going on, and well done. I am really proud of you. And Kimmy's saying, I will read down the list one by one until they answer all my questions. Now, again, we understand that the doctor only has a 15-minute slot. So as Jody's saying, make sure that you ask the questions in order of importance to you. The other thing is this, at the end, you can say, well, we only covered 3 of the medical questions that I have. Make sure that you say medical. So therefore, I'm going to book another appointment and come back next week and get the others sorted out. No, and you're telling him, I'm not I'm going to keep bugging you until I get these answers. Right? And I occasionally, I also find that my doctor thinks that I have a medical degree, I think, because he will come at me and go, well, it could well be, blah, 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 and what we really need to do is, blah, 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 and all these incredible medical words that he thinks I understand. And I let him do it. And then when he's finished, I said, that was very good. If you happen to be talking to a medical student who understood all those terms, I don't know if you've noticed, but, I'm an old fart. I didn't study medicine. Now, would you start again and try it in English this time? And he will say to me, it was English. I said, yeah, I know, but try Sal's English, not yours. You have years of training on those long words and you know exactly what they mean. I don't want to misinterpret what they are, and you are telling me verbally, I haven't got it in writing so I can go and research it. I wouldn't even know how to start to spell it, never mind understand it. Do any of you feel the same way? All right? So whenever my doctor throws jargon at me, as I, sort of medical terms and things, I actually make sure I understand it. I don't presume to understand it. I make sure. So just, Nat, I'm so proud of you. Well done. Okay. So now then, I was saying about my frustration about trying to find this word and this expression. And this is what I wanted to discuss. I promised you last week that I was going to talk a little bit about QAnon. You're right, because I think QAnon is something that we keep hearing about, but got a feeling not too many people know what's going on with it or what it really is. And I guess the truth is, if you were interested, you probably would have done some research. So I'm wondering if any of you who heard me say that last week, that I would talk a bit about it, did any of you go and do the research? Now, how many of you are getting feelings immediately, this is going to get political, therefore I need to get out of here right now? It's not true. It's going to get informational. And if you don't like learning, you're in a really funny place. And the first thing that happened to me was I needed to find out what do you call this thing where, and I'm going to give you an example. There are sharks in the ocean, and sharks occasionally eat people. Therefore, it is true that all things in the ocean attack people. Now, we know that's not true. And I found out that the current modern day wording of that is that it's called a correlation causation fallacy. Now, I must admit that that sounds really complicated. But basically what it's saying that 1 and 1 don't equal 3. Does that make sense? Just because sharks occasionally attack people doesn't mean that everything in the ocean attacks people. But I think a lot of the time when we read things in the news or hear things, we get this little bit of information. And what we do is and I heard of, it was called in my day, generalization fallacy. That we heard, yes, exactly. There you go. So Kimmy's saying, I heard that MAGA is a sort of religious cult. I think politics is a sort of religious cult myself, if you want to do that. And so Jeannie's saying that QAnon is a far-right conspiracy theory. No, it's more than one theory. It's more than one conspiracy. It is a group of people who believe certain things. And I want to get into them. And by the way, I'm going to tell you that in a moment. Nada's asking, what is QAnon? That's why I'm saying it's about to get informational. So they believe all sorts of different things. Now, would you agree, and I'm going to get to that in a second, but before I do that, I am about to ask you a question that's going to upset some of you. Is that okay? I could actually lose viewers with this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I really do believe that part of what is wrong today is we are not asking enough questions, and we are not doing enough research, and we maybe don't know how to do the research, and that's what I want to talk about. And because of that, we don't know enough. And unfortunately, with social media, we end up believing what we read without going deeper. Make sense? So here's the difficult question. Do you all know that yesterday, that Senator Marjorie Greene, something Green, can't remember, I'm certain somebody will advise me, was taken off a number of committees because of her beliefs. And the vote went down yesterday, and the House of Representatives voted to pull her off certain committees. Now, first question, and just take a breath, everybody, because this is our exercise, all right? Can you have this discussion without getting upset? Can we just talk about it like human beings? And it's okay to disagree, and it's okay for me to have a different opinion, and we can all learn from it. Deal? So first of all, thank you. It's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Jody, you're a star. All right, so Kimmy's saying they, QAnon, we're getting to that in a second, Kimmy. So can you come back with that again when we get onto that section? Because I will ask what you already know. Is that okay with you? I just want to finish this Marjorie Greene thing first. So hang on to that. Cut and copy it. Or Jody, could you copy that thing that Kimmy just said? Because I want to come back to it. Okay, so here's the thing. How many of you think it was correct that they took a vote to remove her from certain committees because of what she believed? Even though she stood up yesterday when they were about to take the vote and apologized in her own way for what she had said 3 or 4 years ago, and saying that she no longer believed that. And so the thing is this, here is my bigger question. Why did they wait this long? Either, this is just my view, and I'm going to let you guys have your view because that's important, all right? My view is this. She was voted into the House of Representatives by the voters in her area. They knew what her views were, and they wanted her in because of her views. So my question is, that's why she was there. That's what she ran on. So why are they only querying it now? If what she believes is not acceptable, excuse me, this is a democracy. If what she believes is not acceptable, why did they wait this long before they started to pull her off the committee? Why was she even let in? See, and Kimmy's saying the same thing. My question is, why did they let all those bad people into government? Well, what's bad people? You know, it depends which side of the fence you sit. All right, so Jeannie's saying, all right, so Jeannie's saying, all right, that that's what I heard at first, but later I heard her speak and it sounded so different. Yes, and this is the whole thing. Jeannie, that is the thing. It depends where you sit as to what you hear. So do you understand that? All right, so Salamia is saying that was wrong. But my question is, what was her belief? What were they against? I'm going to talk about that in a second. But first of all, do we intellectually agree there is some level of a question mark here? The question mark being, if it was wrong, her beliefs could not allow her to sit in government, why was she allowed into the government to start with? But since when did people of opposing beliefs not be allowed into government? Either we got a democracy or we haven't. Jeannie's saying, if she would be voted out, why not also vote out some of the committees and person who hates Jews, like Ms. Omar? Exactly. Right? So do you understand there is a double standard going on here? There is a double standard. And if we vote out everybody who has different thinking, then the whole lot should go. Right? Because it is really important to understand that part of being in government is that you hear different people's views. And so you might not agree with them, you might not even like them, but you need to hear them. If you're not hearing them, then how will things improve? So I want to get back. I wanted to make that point that I am totally confused with the American democratic system. If her voters voted her in for what she believes, there were enough people, I would say the same thing, and I'm going to, again, upset a few people here, but think about this. You cannot ignore that 74 million people voted for Mr. Trump. Yeah, there's a lot of people who think his way. Yes, and I was going to bring that up. Thank you, Jeannie. See, you do it again. Jeannie's saying Maxine Waters told people to surround people in a restaurant and yell at them, and she's still in. Yes, so here's my follow-up question on this. We are picking on the fact that she used certain words. But, you know, certain words are becoming part of our everyday language. And this is part of the argument about, you know, the insurrection riot. You know, it is open to interpretation depending on what side of the fence you sit. And what I want us all to do is to understand this is an uncomfortable discussion, and that's good. That's how we learn things. And if you are going to stop people from having freedom of speech, now, do I think, you know, there are certain rules about in government, for example, you have to be respectful of one another and things like that. And so to me, this is really important that you understand that taking her out because of her beliefs is totally confusing to me, because if that's what it means, that if you have different beliefs, you're not allowed in, then you don't have a democracy. Yeah, Kim is saying, you have freedom of speech and views to a certain extent. If you cross the line, spread hate and violence against others, you don't have that right. Okay, so that is a discussion I had, Kimmy, and I agree with you on that one, which is you can have rules around what you can say. I don't, you know, and that is what I believe is the difference, is that you can say you don't agree, but don't attack me as a human being and say I'm stupid or whatever, you know, name calling because I believe these things. It's called, let's be respectful and let us have enough emotional intelligence to do it in a calm, logical, and informative way. I think when we do that, we all learn. It's called debate. And that is what government is meant to be about. You are meant to have opposing views. Why? It balances things out. So I was, don't mind telling you, I was totally confused. That was my feeling about that whole thing. All right, so Jeannie, just hold on a second here. Jeannie's saying President Biden said he wanted to bring folks together, and yet he put people out of work in terms of the pipeline and raises gas prices immediately. Okay, so two different things. And part of me goes, is it true that he canceled the pipeline? Yes. The question is why? Not just that he did it, why? All right? And I didn't know that he'd upped the price. He doesn't control the gas price, I don't think. That's controlled. I could be wrong on that one. I don't think the president controls the gas prices. Jody, could you do me a quick bit of research on that? Yes, and Kimmy is saying, if you remember, part of this Marjorie Taylor Greene thing is that she verbally attacked David Howe, something like that, the guy from Parkland. So what we need to do is to be aware that I think we're going to see wording changed about what is harassment and what is an attack on somebody. I'd like to think that. Kimmy's saying that the pipeline goes through native land and is leaking, and that's why they stopped it. I understood that the reason they stopped it had to do with environmental issues, but I'm very interested to hear what you all believe, because again, I think we all believe different things because of what we read. And that is what I'm about to demonstrate. All right, so thank you, Jody, is telling me that in America, the federal government does not have the constitutional authority to regulate gas prices outside of a national emergency. However, it is a national emergency. Is that what is happening here? I don't, I haven't done enough research into that point, Kimmy. So how about, can we do a bit more research on that and then discuss it? Because I haven't had, that's the first I heard that the prices went up on gasoline. So I don't want to pontificate one way or the other when I don't really know. And I'm sure that Jody will help us look into that a bit more. Maybe I can feed it back this afternoon. So now I want to tell you something that I just want to carry on in terms of this whole thing about QAnon, okay? So what I said, and I just want to give a preamble to this, the whole discussion about really QAnon came in because the House of Representatives was about to vote, right, to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene from her committee assignments over her embrace of the QAnon conspiracy theory and other violent political rhetoric. So that is why they removed her, is because of her, that she embraced QAnon and violent political rhetoric. Now, again, this is a thing about if you are encouraging people to be violent, then that goes against the rules in the government, right? You cannot sit in the House of Representatives or in the Senate, and violently talk violence. That's not what we do. All right, so Nada's multitasking as usual. She's making food while listening. Good girl. And Jeannie's saying environment will be no better if we must go out to a certain country that has few restrictions, really clean air. So I think that it's a very difficult decision, right? The same way, and I've got to say this, the same way, for example, that Canada, and I talk about that because that's where I live, when they decided to go to a national health plan, right? Some people are going to be violently opposed to that, and some people thought it was a great idea. And so to me, that was like you have to do a major change to get something better. So pipelines are yeah, gasoline and the pipelines that carry them. We are trying in this world to get away from that, not to encourage the use of it. We are trying to get away from it and get wind power and solar power and clean air and all those things. So in a way, it's like, yes, you've got a resource, and I can imagine there's an awful lot of lobbying because the people who own those oil wells, want to make money out of them, and they, so I understand there are two sides to the story. And Jody is saying an increase in gas prices following a presidential election isn't new. Prices increased 26 cents from November the 28th, 2016 to January the 8th, 2017, 12 days before Trump took office. Okay, but it's not controlled by the president, except in a national emergency. I think those are the words you have to hear. So I want to just get off the gas price thing at the moment, because I want to just carry on with what I promised you all, which is to give you the information on QAnon, if that's okay with everybody. And I know I'm very proud of you all. You're coming up with great stuff. And, if you like talking about this stuff, we will do more. Okay, so here's what I did. When I wanted to find out about QAnon, I did not want you to hear my views about it necessarily. I wanted you to hear it from all sorts of different supposedly reliable sources, depending on who you believe, right? We know that the media is, biased to some degree, whatever media you listen to, all right? And isn't it interesting that since the election of President Biden, that Fox News has plummeted and is now ranked number 3 in terms of their viewership, when they were 3 times ahead of anybody else during the Trump presidency. Isn't that amazing how that has shifted in just less than a month? I mean, that to me is amazing. Anyway, so what I did was I decided I was going to read you what different publications had to say about QAnon. And then I'm sure if you're really interested in QAnon, you will check it out yourself. But here's what I found out. USA Today. There was a comment made, and you're going to hear this, a comment made about QAnon and Save the Children. Some of you, actually, let me ask you first of all, what do you know about QAnon? And how did you learn about it? All right, so Salamia says, I'm listening as I don't know much about it, but it's very interesting to me. Well, that's all that we're doing, is we're giving information. But what I'm trying to do is to show you that even if you disagree, it's important that we hear both sides. It's important that we hear about the gas prices. Heck, I didn't know about them. I consider myself fairly well read, but I didn't know they put the gas prices up. So Jody will remind me to look into that a bit more so that we can talk about it a bit more. And so, it's like, I want to make sure that what I give you is the best that I can find. So here's the whole thing. What happened was, have any of you heard that QAnon is about Save the Children? All right, and another saying, the road beside the pipeline I drove, and it was such lovely nature then, and what the heck is this ugly wreck now? Yes, and it is frightening. But again, let's go back to QAnon. So what I heard was it had something to do with pedophiles, pedophile being adults who abuse minor children, normally sexually. And I had heard various conspiracy theories, and I had heard that words like deep state and all those sort of things were coming out. So I want to just try and get to the bottom of some of these things to see if we can calm it down a bit. USA Today said that the fact check was that people like Ellen and Oprah and many others are under house arrest for child sex trafficking. Did any of you hear that one? Right? Conspiracy theory. And the USA Today said the claims appear to originate from the far-right conspiracy movement QAnon. Followers of this movement hold a wide range of beliefs, but a primary conspiracy theory is that global elites, leading Democrats, and the deep state are involved in pedophilia and mind control and are working against Trump, who is trying to end their activities. The theories have evolved into baseless claims accusing various celebrities of involvement in sex trafficking, Epstein-related or otherwise, and those accusations have gone viral. So there we go. Now then, the question I had, and I'll carry on this one, the question that I had was, why did they start targeting various celebrities? And I will answer that in a second. But the BBC, I thought BBC is a pretty reputable news source, in my view. And so, and it's in another country, and it's always a good idea to see what other countries are saying about it, because they've got different people. They got different people talking about it. So here's what the BBC said, that's the British Broadcasting Corporation, said, at its heart, QAnon is a wide-ranging, completely unfounded theory that says that President Trump is waging a secret war against the elite, Satan-worshipping pedophiles in government, business, and the media. QAnon believers have speculated that this fight will lead to a day of reckoning where prominent people, such as former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, will be arrested and executed. That is pretty scary stuff. Please notice the word executed. The BBC went on to report that a Pew Research Center study in September of 2020 found that nearly half of Americans had heard of QAnon, double the number from 6 months before. And of those who had heard about it, about 1/5 had a positive view of the movement. 1/5 of those people. If you've heard about it, 1/5 of the people had a favorable view of it. And for many believers, QAnon forms the foundation of their support for President Trump. So this doesn't mean that all people who supported President Trump are QAnon people, right? Remember the fallacy thing. Just because some people believe this doesn't mean that all people believe it. Are we clear on that? And so I'm going to get back to this whole pedophilia thing about the Save the Children, all right, in a second. The Guardian said, QAnon is a baseless, this is the Guardian, very well-respected newspaper overseas. QAnon is a baseless internet conspiracy theory whose followers believe that the cabal of Satan worshipping there's a cabal of Satan-worshipping Democrats. In other words, a sort of group of them, all right? Hollywood celebrities and billionaires run the world while engaging in pedophilia, human trafficking, and the harvesting of a supposedly life-extended chemical from the blood of abused children. QAnon followers believe that Donald Trump is waging a secret battle against this cabal and its deep state collaborators to expose the malefactors and send them all to Guantanamo Bay. CNN, obviously biased, but CNN says, since its origin 3 years ago, QAnon has festered in the darker corners of the internet. Now the group's followers, who call themselves believers, have found a niche in social media and within the Republican Party. All right, so there we go, a cross section. I want to talk about this child abuse thing. Let me tell you, from what I've been able to research and find out, the whole thing, some of you may have heard that they've accused not only Hillary Clinton, but various members of the media, and the list is huge, all right? Here's what happened. It started off with the whole Epstein thing, right? The whole thing about Epstein, if you remember, was that he was, ran a pedophilia ring, that he had an island, and that he invited people to the island, and some of those people were invited to take part in child abuse. But again, remember the whole thing about if you take one fact, it doesn't mean that all the facts are true, all right? So here's what happened. Some of the QAnon people did some research, and Epstein had a private plane, or some. And what he would do is he would invite people to his island. Now, does it mean that everybody who visited his island was invited for those reasons? I don't necessarily think so. I think he had a beautiful island and he invited people to it, and celebrities. And who are the celebrities he would invite? He would invite, obviously, Hollywood's elite and political elite. So, and even, does that mean they all participated in child abuse? No, not necessarily so. Just because you invite people to your private island doesn't mean that they necessarily are involved in that. Do I believe that Epstein did have weeks or whatever on that island where that was the focus? Absolutely. But you cannot say just because you traveled on the airplane means you're part of it. Okay? And do you understand my point? So let's say that you've got Richard Branson has an island, a private island. He invites all sorts of well-known people to that island. All right? Why? Because people with a lot of money need places where they can be themselves, all right? They need, an island always works for them because then they can control sort of who is there. And so, if you understand what I'm saying, and that's part of why islands are always things that they hire private yachts, moored off private islands, or all those sort of things. So be careful that you don't hear a little bit of news. Epstein had an island, and on that island they occasionally practiced sex trafficking types, sex abuse stuff on minors. Totally, we've got the proof of that. But just because you had a seat on one of his planes does not mean you went to that island, and does not mean you went there for that reason. So that's what I don't know enough about. But I do know one thing, that they have accused this incredible group of people of all sorts of things. So I think what's scary is how many people today can hear a little bit of news and then globalize it, think that it applies to everything. All right? So, sorry, let me just read back again here. All right, so Jeannie's saying, hatred towards former President Trump. They are not my Republican friends. Getting back a bit more, Jeannie said, I call this ridiculous. I believe when former President Trump was first asked, he said he didn't even know about QAnon. Yes, and so therefore, this is like the point that I'm making, that we don't know. It will come out. I am certain that all the investigations are being done. But the point is that we do know that this group, regardless of what all the newspapers are telling you, that this group is spreading some pretty interesting information. There's part of me, I've got to be quite honest, that goes, what if it is true? Have any of you thought about that? What if it is true that there is this, group of people around the world, and it's made up with people like Oprah, Ellen, I believe Anderson Cooper is on the list, and I don't know all the people on the list, but there's some pretty powerful people that are on QAnon's list that are being accused of being part of a pedophilia ring. And I'm also fairly sure that they are not Republican people. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think I've heard about Republicans being on that list. Maybe that's something that I need to do a bit more research on. So this is the whole thing. Do you believe this? And if so, why? Now, I believe Trump's association with it. I agree with Jeannie in some ways that I'm not 100% sure. I think they took what Trump was saying and tagged onto it, quite honestly. I don't necessarily believe that it started off with Trump being part of that at all. But however, do I think that he saw it as a group of people that he could, add to his base if he said the right things? Yes, I do. I do believe that, and that is his right. All right. So if he saw that there was this group of people who believed there was sex trafficking going on, and he wanted to stop that, right? That he could get that base on his side. I think that's perfectly normal. And who wouldn't want to stop it? And Kimmy is saying, what about the thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people who have died in the US from the pandemic? Who is responsible for that? And what is the truth of it? Yes, so another very controversial subject, right? There are the two sides to that story, Kim, in my view, two sides to it. Number one, I've heard an awful lot of people blame President Trump for it. On the other hand, I also have heard a lot of people tell me that what President Trump decided to do is he put all the energy in producing the vaccine as fast as possible. Okay? And so to me, if you think about it, it's not that he ignored it. He decided two things. Number one, he was being advised by people who were advising him. He was being advised that actually there's a lot of merit on the herd immunity. In other words, let everybody get it, and then we'll all be immune to it. he was being advised that, I don't know, I can't remember who it was by, but, and so he was being led to believe that. Now, obviously, Dr. Fauci didn't believe that, but when he listened to everything, from what I understand, he made an executive decision, and that's his job as the president, made an executive decision that what we're going to do is we're going to basically shut down the borders, but we're going to concentrate on plowing a lot of money into getting this vaccine delivered. Get it, normally this would take years to develop. We're going to put a lot of money behind it so that we can get the vaccine in a hurry. I personally think that's a good thing. Right? I personally think that's a good thing. Unfortunately, the amount of people who have died as a result is very high. The question is, how much of the deaths are not due to President Trump at all, necessarily? It's people not choosing to wear masks. Now, were they told not to wear masks? Was the role model there not to wear masks? Yeah. And for that, I have different feelings. But, when you look at it, there are good and bad in everybody. So do I think, and I was asked that, do I think President Trump was to blame of all this? No, I don't think he was. Do I think that Joe Biden is the answer to all of this? No. All right? It is a horrific pandemic. Nobody can win with this pandemic until we get it under control. And do I think that mistakes will be made? Yes. So to me, what we're trying to learn is, are you doing enough research across enough different sources? Are you checking to see that you're getting the input from both sides in terms of, what does the opposition think about it, but what does the pro think about it? So I don't think that any of us will ever agree. Part of being human beings is that we sit on different sides of the fence. Does it mean we have to insult each other? Does it mean we have to threaten to kill one another? Does it mean we have the right to lynch people or say, because you disagree with me, I'm going to execute you? Well, yes, if you rebel against the government, I think that's called treason. Whole different story. All right. So again, this is scary stuff, Jeannie, and because I'm horrified to think that. All right. So Jeannie's comment is, if you want to blame anybody, blame New York Governor Cuomo for putting people in nursing homes to die. I don't know Governor Cuomo myself, but nothing in my gut, Jeannie, in all honesty, nothing in my gut that I know says that he intentionally put people into nursing homes to die. Jeannie goes on to say he refused help from President Trump. I think there was a bit more to that story, Jeannie, as to what he refused. All right? And so, again, we agree to disagree on that. But I am not pro Governor Cuomo or against him. I just don't believe that anybody, in their right mind wouldn't do the best they knew how. And will some people in nursing homes die because of COVID? Of course they will. Who is in nursing homes? The vulnerable, the weak, the people who are waiting for God, as they say. And so therefore, is it natural in human nature that if you are in a nursing home, an old age home, whatever, senior care facility, you are more vulnerable to die from it. All right, so Judy's saying he could have used a boat. Oh, you're meaning bring in the, what is it called? The medical ship, all right? All right, so again, good point. I can't remember why he didn't accept the medical ship. There was a reason for it. And I can't remember what it was. But I seem to remember, Jeannie, and I could be totally wrong, but it wasn't just that he didn't want it. There was a specific reason why he said no to it. I think he wanted the ventilators, not the ship. But I could be wrong, and it's too far back for me now. Yes, and Jeannie, that's the point that I'm saying here. Jeannie's saying, I will thank former President Trump when I get our vaccines tomorrow. That's the point that I'm making, is that I do believe that Trump put his energies into getting the vaccine as fast as possible. Now, I just heard, and this is, again, think about this. The whole reason we're talking about this is, how are you feeling, right? Well, at least one person has left the conversation because this is uncomfortable stuff. All right. And my attitude is we need to get comfortable with uncomfortable stuff if we're going to help one another. And so I heard, Jeannie, yesterday that Canada, all right, that Canada has somehow or other managed to get some of its vaccines and diverted them from the stuff that was going to third world countries. Now, I haven't looked into that enough to find out what the heck's going on there, but I do know that somebody put that out there, and that has spread now across the internet. Thank you. Salamia is saying exactly the point that I am trying to demonstrate. People need to research across different platforms to get the whole picture. You know, if we just listen to one news broadcast, if we just take our information. By the way, part of what I do when I'm trying to find out what's going on is I phone a lot of different people that have all sorts of different views. And that is really important. Jeannie saying here that she thinks the person might have left because she's angry with Jeannie. No, she's left because she's getting angry about the conversation. I am certain that that is what it is. You see, conflict discussions are very difficult for people to manage. That is the whole reason why I want to talk about it. My friends are people who can talk on opposing sides. Not all my friends agree with what I agree with. And I still love them to bits. I can sit down and have a meal with them and we can go blah, 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 blah. And at the end of it, we agree to disagree and I give her a big hug and off I go. You see, it's not about, you're entitled to your opinion. I just asked to make sure that you get your opinion based on enough facts. Not that you picked it up on social media somewhere. How about my brother, all right? Suddenly spurting off that there was an over-the-counter drug that was curing COVID. My brother is intelligent, people. And when I asked for the source, it was the Sowetan newspaper in South Africa. Now, not known to be the know-all of medicine. So, you know, I look at it and go, when I investigated the same medication, I found that Reuters, I respect Reuters as being fairly unbiased, but Reuters were telling me nothing's been proven that this thing works. So what am I going to believe? I'm going to believe what I want to believe. Isn't that true? I'm going to believe what I want to believe. And so is Jeannie, and so is Jody, and so is Salamia, but at least let's get each other educated on it so that we can talk about it, and it's okay to disagree. Jody is giving us some news here on the USS Comfort. That was the medical ship that was refused. The USS Comfort had been docked in Manhattan for weeks. Governor Cuomo said to the former President Trump that the ship could be sent elsewhere to help because the level of care needed at the time was being met in New York. He released it so it could help. I think it was California at the time that was having a bigger outbreak than he was. All right? That's what I believe, Jeannie. And thank you, Jody, for getting me the facts so I could talk to it. That is what I heard, that he didn't say no to it because he didn't want it for New York. He let it go because he thought California needed it more than he did at that time. Does that, so, believe what you want to believe. I cannot ask you to believe what you don't want to believe. Yes, and Jody's saying, please do your own research, folks. I'm paraphrasing due to space limitations. You're doing a great job, Jody. Now, I want to stop the political discussion, and I want to ask you, how are you feeling? Do you feel that you've learned something today? Do you feel that you are under control of your emotions? Or do you feel angry, frustrated, whatever? Tell me what you're feeling. And in the last few minutes that we have, I want to talk about, and what are we going to do about it? Yes, Jeannie. Jeannie is saying that Governor Cuomo was quite mistaken. We're all brilliant in hindsight. I am certain that even President Trump will look back and see he was quite mistaken as well in some things. I am certain President Biden will look back and go, I was mistaken on this as well, because it's easy to look back and say what we should have done. There is part of me that genuinely believes that, everybody does the best they can. All right, Nat is saying that she's feeling a bit of both, a bit frustrated, a bit angry, a bit whatever, but she's still in the story. Thank you for staying. Jody is saying, always a learning moment. And when we stop learning, a part of us dies. I embrace the conversation. Thank you. Salamia is saying, I'm feeling great. I learned something new, some new and intriguing news. I'm glad to hear that. Jeannie's saying, I feel under control because I made certain points as best I can and was listened to. Hallelujah. This is, again, Jeannie saying exactly what it is. If we don't listen to one another, right? If I don't listen to Jeannie's point of view or Kimmy's or whatever, then I'm part of the problem. Do I have to agree with it? Not if my facts, I'm entitled to do my research and find out facts. However, where am I getting my facts from? Also important. If I only get my facts from CNN, which we know is democratically biased, then I'm not as under control. That's why I ask all sorts of people when I want information. And by the way, when I go deep diving into these things, I will actually phone people up and say, tell me what you know about QAnon, right? That's how I start the conversation. I want to do a broadcast about QAnon. Tell me what you know. I believe if we all listen to each other a bit more, we would have less conflict. I believe, quite honestly, and I know that some of you are probably quite surprised about this, I believe that if one community votes to put in a representative that has totally radical ideas, it must mean that enough people in that community support those radical ideas. Rightly or wrongly, they support them and believe that that human being can make a difference for them in the government. I don't like what she says. I don't like what the white supremacists say. I don't like a lot of what the Hells Angels do. I don't like a lot of things in life. But you know what? They're part of our society. They are part of our society. And they've got reasons for doing what they do. Let me tell you something else. I believe the reason that we have Netflix, Prime Video, and all those streaming services available to us today is for all the people that started downloading music illegally. Napster, wasn't it? Way back when? I think it was Napster that started it. And then people learned about how do I download illegal movies. Why? They didn't want to go outside the house to go watch a movie. They wanted to see it on their computer in the comfort of their own home so they could go crack a beer while they were watching the movie. And I remember that somebody during a dinner one evening said to me, these people should be thrown in jail. And I said, no, I think we should listen. I think we should listen. There's a reason why that many people are doing it illegally. It is because it is the way society is going, and we need to listen. And I remember saying, this was 5-10 years ago, I can't remember how long ago it was. I remember saying, I think you're going to find that within 5-10 years, we're going to be able to download music for free. Well, that's not fair because of the royalties and everything. I said, they'll find a way of paying the royalties through advertising or whatever. But I think you'll find that's what we're going to do. I think you're going to find that we're going to be able to watch movies that normally we would need to go to the movie theater for. We're going to be able to watch them on our computers. And it's going to be great because we won't have to watch ads. And that's another reason why people want to download these movies. They don't have to watch ads. And isn't it interesting that in the course of a decade, we went from, as Jody said, standing in line at Blockbuster to now, what am I going to watch on Netflix tonight? All right, and Salamia says, that's the first time I've heard of QAnon. I've read the books, though, of all these type of societies. There you go. All right. And there have been lots of them. We've always had them. They've always been part of our society. The anti-Semitics have always been part of our society, unfortunately. People who debunk the Holocaust have always been part of our society. People who believe in keeping the immigrants out of any country, always been part of every society in the world. So, this is not unusual stuff. The reason it is so big at the moment is because we have social media. Right? It is social media that is educating, be it falsely in some cases, so many people. So now then, I want you to be aware that I'm feeling pretty scared. All right? And I'm feeling pretty scared because this is just the beginning of social media. But the question is it exposing the fact that we need to listen more? We need to make sure we educate everybody at school, not at university. We need to educate everybody at the school age level how to research and get facts properly. You see, that to me is the big change that we need to make. Because it's always going to be there. You're always going to have these fringe elements. And you're always going to have people who believe differently. That's normal. But just because they believe differently doesn't necessarily mean they are stupid. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're wrong. What it means is we need to listen and hear why. Did any of you change your opinion about anything during this conversation? Did any of you hear something that you went, wow, I didn't know that? That changes my thinking a little bit. Because it means that you overcame your conflict to actually listen to some facts. I didn't overreact to Jeannie saying that Governor Cuomo had refused help from President Trump. I remember that he did, but I couldn't remember the reason for it. Thank you, Jody. Exactly. Nada is making a very valid point. And she says, I still don't know what websites are fact-checked legit. I mean, you never know which ones to believe. I think the best you can do, Nada, and I totally agree with you, I think the best we can do is to say, I hear it, let me check it out. Who do I trust to give me the news correctly? And it may not be that it's CNN, it may be that it is not Fox News. Jody is saying Snopes. I think you all know that I look at Snopes a lot. Snopes is pretty good about telling you what's true and what's false. And they do it in a, pretty good time. I believe that we will always have disagreements, that we hear facts, but we don't believe them. That's human nature. Have you ever not believed something and then years later found out that, oops, I was wrong? And then realized the reason you were wrong is you didn't do enough research or whatever. I'm certain we've all done that. I really love it when we can have these discussions. Part of me goes, I think we could talk about them all day and still disagree on stuff. That's okay. Conflict is not a bad thing. Disagreeing with one another is part of learning from one another. Only if we listen. So do I think, my view, do I think that the people who want to cut down on immigration because we're changing, America's changing the face of America. Can I understand what they're getting at? Yeah, they want to keep the same. England had the same. Every country, but we invented airplanes. And airplanes helped us move and turn the world into one global place, right? And ships used to bring a few people, but airplanes bring millions of people. And so I look at it and go, people are trying to hold on to the past, and the past is the past. I understand that people don't want to change their way of life. I understand that. I understand they don't want to understand different religions, right? Doesn't mean that I can't work to try and understand. Do I believe, and I've had this conversation with you all, do I believe, that just because a fanatic group hit the World Trade Centers, that all Muslims are bad people? Now, I've had different experience in my life, all right? Quite the opposite. So, it's just like, we do this globalization of fallacy thinking, of wrong thinking. And just because one person does it doesn't mean that everybody else has to. Remember, I said about the riots, the fanatics at the front, a fanatic, not that they're stupid, fanatic is somebody that believes beyond all reason, all right? They were at the front end doing the damage. You had the people at the back who chose to do the walk down the mall, but did not attack the Capitol. Those were perfectly legal people. And then you had that segment in between who thought that looked quite exciting, storming the Capitol, so they joined in. And they will always join in. We're always going to have those people. Jody's saying, if I could go back to the pipeline discussion for a moment, I learned that 1,000 actual jobs were affected, not 11,000. It was 10,000 non-hires that were added to the figure to make the 11,000. Okay, so the people who would have had a job now won't have that job. Yeah, and you can look at it both ways. My attitude is, if we want clean air, if we want that to be our future, then take those 11,000 people and train them in wind turbines, train them in solar installation, train them. We don't have to lose the jobs, we just need to redirect them. And Jeannie is saying there is a difference between legal and illegal immigration. Some persons have come and wanted a reasonable length of time to become citizens. Yeah, waited a reasonable length of time to become citizens. But why give everything to illegals? Money, housing, car, etc. I want to tell you something. We all have that question, all right? So it's like, however, do you believe that people, what are you going to do about it? All right. So to me, if we try to hold on to I understand we need to hold on to the past because of our traditions and our heritage and whatever, but we still have to live in the future. If fossil fuels are destroying our planet, and by the way, so are cows, all right? The amount of methane gas that is put into the atmosphere by cows alone is horrific. So, there are all sorts of things that are going to change if we want clean air, right? Either we produce less people who need less food, in which case, the air will heal itself, or else we have to change what we're doing. And people don't like change. They want it all. They want to have their cake and eat it. And Jeannie's saying, I believe in borders. Right. That's your right. Canada has the biggest border in the world. It's ours with the US. And so the bottom line of all this is, I applaud the fact that you disagree. I applaud the fact that we can disagree and talk about it and hopefully still keep viewers. I might end up with no viewers at the end of this one. But, to me, it was worth the risk. It was worth the risk for me to say, regardless of what I feel about Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, that if they voted her into that position, that is the fact. I have always said, regardless of what I thought about President Trump, he was voted in by enough people to get that job. And I don't have to agree with him, but I do have to respect the fact he was voted in. And so my attitude is, do we have to kill one another because of this? Do we have to threaten to string up, let's find Nancy Pelosi and hang her as they storm the Capitol? I don't think that's what it's about. Or, let's find Mike Pence because they wanted to kill him as well because he didn't break the law. Hello, there is something fundamentally wrong I believe, when we start thinking that's okay. I believe that the decorum in the government, the way that they do it in the House of Representatives, they have certain ground rules called the Roberts Rules of Law, I think, certain ground rules that say we don't insult one another. You can think what you like, but you do not insult the person. What you do is you try to make sure that everybody hears your point of view, and then we vote. And then we vote. I quite agree to Jeannie's saying that many of our ancestors have ancestors who came to the US legally. I would say the majority of Americans, all right, are the product of ancestors who came to the US legally. But they're all immigrants. And I agree there is a total difference between legal and illegal immigration. Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you. And so I have sat at many meetings where Robert's Rules of Order came in. And the reason Robert's Rules of Order, and if you don't know what it is, look it up, it works so well, is because it says we will treat people with respect. We will hear everybody, all right? And then we will vote. And we will give people who disagree the opportunity to disagree so we can educate one another. We don't have to end up agreeing with them, but we will give equal time. Jeannie, I admire you. I don't know many people that will do what you do here, right? And I admire you for that. I really do. And I admire you for the fact that you live, with family members who totally disagree. One of the things that always fascinated me, I don't know about you guys, but it was like Kellyanne Conway, top advisor to President Trump, and yet she's married to a man that started the Lincoln Project. It was just like, I cannot imagine what the conversations were around the breakfast table. And they were so different in their views. And I'm going, how did that play out? And we have many people that have married people of totally different views. But what they do is they love each other. And they are prepared to listen and either change or not change. But they agree to disagree. They agree not to discuss this over breakfast, maybe. I don't know how they do it, but I'm certain we have a lot to learn. I really would love to read the book, how they did that. I don't know about the rest of you, because I kept going, boy, I'd love to be a fly in the wall in that house. So I hope you've learned something. I hope you understand that conflict is not necessarily a bad thing if we learn something. I totally agree. I totally agree that there is a huge difference between legal and illegal immigration. I totally understand why people who are so adamant about the fact that illegal, immigration should not happen. Will it always happen to some degree? I think so. But I understand that people get angry because people who didn't wait in line properly, didn't go through the right channels, are getting full board. And I totally understand the anger about that. Totally get it. Do I think a border wall is going to fix it? No. Quite honestly, I don't. But let's keep talking about it. And let us be bigger than this. Let us continue to learn. Let us not run away from something that is contentious because it makes us feel uncomfortable. Let us go, I don't know enough about that. Let me go and do some research so the next time this comes up, I will have different comments to make. And then people will challenge me on those comments. Jeannie, did you know why Governor Cuomo refused the ship? Right? But what you heard was that he refused the help. He didn't. He said, I don't need it right now, but California, I think it was California that needed it, but California does. I'm under control here at the moment. The fact that, later, the pandemic blew up in his face and then it blew up in California even worse. So I look at it now and go, it is so easy. Yes, absolutely. Salamina says people go to live in different countries in search of a better life. That is how America was built. That is how Canada was built. It's the story of civilization. And I assure you, throughout civilization, people have disagreed with the ruling party and the person who heads up the ruling party. And throughout civilization, people have disagreed on everything, and they always will. But every now and then, a few people say, I may disagree, but I'd like to learn more. I would like to learn more. I'd like to know more of the facts around it. And if we're really lucky, we'll have somebody like Jody on board who will instantly go fact check something for us, just so that we can be better informed. But I do challenge you all. Part of the reason we have such conflict is we are dealing with getting information from sources that are not always telling the truth. I hope and pray that our news media goes back to reporting the news and does less of editorializing it. I was horrified to see that whilst Fox News lost an awful lot of viewership, the people who were most opinionated, if I can put it that way, were the ones that were holding their audiences. And Jeannie's saying, anyway, some of us can agree it will be fun watching Tom Brady. Yes, and some of us will never forgive him. For the ball thing. Isn't it funny? And I think that's the whole thing. Life is beautiful, and it's okay to disagree, people. The thing is, can you stay emotionally under control and curious? And if so, you are a pretty smart person in a lot of ways. Do you have the courage to stand up as Jeannie does and say what she has to say? If so, we need to listen. Because not enough people are talking. And not enough of us have a good enough sense of humor to be able to say, hey, I can't believe that. I just spent 2 hours discussing politics and I'm still alive and I don't hate everybody. If you can say that, anybody? Do I have anybody left that can say that? Because if so, then I'm glad I did the broadcast. You see, social media is all about having opinions. And you think about it. As somebody said, who was it that said that? Betty White, right? Can't understand why, Facebook, we post all our holiday pictures, where in my day, seeing somebody's holiday pictures was, something we dreaded. So, people, I love you dearly. Let's keep talking about things. Let's keep learning. Let's keep going, huh? What's that about? Why did Como refuse that ship? Doesn't sound, and he needed it later. I understand that totally. He didn't know that at the time. So Jody is rooting for Tom Brady, and I know Lionel is as well. But, you know, Kansas City is going to be tough to beat. Absolutely. And I think, quite honestly, I think a lot of us emotionally will want Brady to win this, unless you happen to be from Kansas City. So here's the thing: let's enjoy it. Don't you enjoy supporting one team or the other? Isn't that what sport is all about? All right. And you know, do you fight as best you can? You bet you do. That's what makes it fun. You believe things. You believe you're the better team. If Tom Brady didn't believe that, he wouldn't be doing it. If he didn't believe he's the best quarterback in the world, you know, he wouldn't have gone to join another team to prove it. Yes, I agree. Kansas City is forming a dynasty as the Patriots did. Yes, the Patriots showed it could be done. And now, and you see, don't you think they do that in motor racing? When they go out, do you think that they think about, I've got to beat the guy ahead of me, but do they say, I need to kill him? I think that's what went wrong. I think that's what went wrong. I don't believe that sports people, we need to beat the other team. But they don't mean if we can't beat them, we'll lynch them. You know, it's like slightly different, people. Let's get this back, you know, under some sort of decency again. This is DearMamaSal saying, thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to do this with me. And thank you for understanding that the more we learn, the more educated we will be. That we never know it all. And that if we don't discuss it, we lose the opportunity to learn. I learned a great deal today. Thank you. In getting ready to do this, I learned more about QAnon. Thank you for letting me do that. This is DearMamaSal saying, I am so proud of you. We'll talk about whether we're going to do a broadcast on Sunday tonight as well. Let's see what everybody wants. Maybe I'll put up a thing to find out what people want to do. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for your time. This is DearMamaSal saying, remember, look after one another. Please look after yourselves first and make sure you check things out. And check it out and check out the source of what you're checking out. Don't just believe it. Hear it and say to yourself, that doesn't sound quite right to me. Let me check it out some more. And if you can't be bothered to check it out, then you will be led by fanatics. It is when we check things out that we learn. This is DearMamaSal saying, bye-bye for now.